right, I don't know if you all can hear me yet. We are starting our streaming. I think it's about to start here. So I just wanted to give everybody a second to catch up with me, and then we're going to go ahead and start up. All right, let's see. Anybody see me here? Okay, it says we're live. We're live. All right. Well, hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. Here we go. Always could be a technical thing or two going on. So, here we go. All right. So, hey everybody, thanks for joining in. This is the Conservation Conversation podcast number 2. This is just our second one. So if you like it and things are going well, let me know. If you think we need to make a few changes, let me know. We're still forming, and I'm very excited today because we are going to talk about, are the waters of Florida safe? All right, well, there we go. So today's episode is Florida. You know, we keep seeing in the news, there is all these different things going on about Florida. There's flesh-eating diseases. There's red tide. There is blue-green algae. There are people whose dogs are dying from going in the water. And one thing that I've always found is that Florida is an incredible place for activism. Some of the most passionate activists are there. And it's also a very divided political state. So there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts, and I'm excited that we can all be together today to talk about these moving parts and to talk about solutions and options. And we're going to inform people that aren't from Florida, is it safe, and how do you approach your vacation safely? And we're going to talk about, for people that live in Florida, what can you do to make changes, or how can you get involved? Or, you know, Florida has an amazing community online and in the streets working on conservation. And there are so many water issues. So I'm real excited. We have some great guests today. We have Stel Bailey from Fight for Zero Foundation, who's going to talk to us about health and the surrounding, pollution issues. And we have Colleen Marie, who is an amazing water activist, goes out and does a lot of work on the beaches, taking people firsthand to what's happening down there. We have Karl Deigert, who is going to talk to us about the Rights of Nature campaign and how maybe that can help Florida out as a possibility, which will be interesting. And we're also going to talk to Michelle Bisson, who is an eco tour guide and spends all of her days on the water, giving tours and teaching people all about the environment there. So these are the things that that we really want to hear about and talk about. So while we're here, let's see, who do we have with us today? Let's take a look here. Hello, Andrea. Hey, Valerie. All right. Hey, Colleen, Carrie. I see everybody's joining in. This is going to be a really good one. I'm very, very excited for today. One thing is, once Flint happened, and first everybody saw Aaron Brockovich movie, and they started to think about how water and our surroundings could affect us. And then Flint happened, and it unnerved everybody and unsettled everybody. And once that happened, then people started to be very conscious. But one thing that people don't really think about is that it's still happening, and the people that are supposed to be protecting us have been dismantled bit by bit. And we're in a process right now, and this is not necessarily politics, but it's deregulation. And we're at the point where things have been deregulated so massively that, a lot of people are getting a lot of illnesses, and there's a lot, it's sort of, on Florida, it's all piling up right now. They're getting it from, nutrient excessive nutrient loads in the water, excessive pollution, natural conditions, global warming, climate change, policies that allow best management practices, which allow companies that pollute the waters to determine how well they're doing as far as cleaning up after themselves go. So there's a whole spectrum of issues here today. And let's see, Steve. Hey, Steve. Mari. Hey, Mari. Mari has been another person who's fought for clean water and health in Florida for a long time. So it's very awesome to have you on here, Mari, and hope you jump in and share your thoughts and experiences with us. And anybody that wants to travel to Florida, please ask questions on this forum. Anybody that just lives there and has some sort of solutions for us, please let us know what your thoughts are, what your experiences are, and what you see. So I would really love to have that. And Carrie says Mosaic is polluting our waters. Yeah, and that is this is part of the issues. There is when you see Florida, all the waterways connect and they all go directly out into the oceans. And what happens is you have a lot of companies that are polluting and that are putting their runoff without any kind of regulation into the waterways. And then the waterways is used by the municipalities to draw their local water. So this industrial pollution that's going out there is being used by these towns all up and down the water. There's my all up and down the waterway. And then they're being used, and people aren't thinking about it. They're showering. When you shower, your skin absorbs the most amount of water. So every time you shower, you have a potential of absorbing harmful chemicals if it's coming from the water. Every time you drink tap water, every time you go to a water fountain. I saw tests that were done in elementary schools that had excessive radon levels in the water fountains. So there is a lot that these companies are getting away with, and it's at the benefit and the health of the children and the residents. So that's why it's very exciting today to have this show and this topic. Let's see, what else do we have here? Hello, Kits Castillo Garcia. And Carrie's right. They do their own water testing. This is another indication of the problem that's happening with it, is that they're allowed to do their own testing. And very often they can report their own results whenever they get the results that they like. So there is no oversight and there's no regulation. I was doing a little bit of research and I saw that Rick Scott's, Rick Scott, I guess, had quite a bit to do with this. I know I've seen a lot of passionate views on him, but his motto was environmental regulations kill jobs. So, and that's also a tough spot here, because as we're looking into the water issues, we have to remember that there's a lot of livelihoods that come from water, whether it's people working at these factories and these plants, it's captains that are on the water every day, fishermen that are on the water every day, scuba instructors, tourism. A lot of Florida's pulse thrives based on the water and the water conditions. So it's a very symbiotic connection, I think. Red Tide Rick. I saw that a lot. Yeah, that seems to be his legacy. And unfortunately, I was, over 120 million visitors go to Florida every year, from international destinations. Over 120 million visitors go to Florida. So you can see the economic impact of saying, don't go in the water. But at the same time, how are tourists going to know when and where it's safe? Because it's my understanding, and we're excited to talk to all the guests today to find out exactly how safe, where we can go, how to be smart about it, and how to be cautious as you're going through. Hi, Drusilla. It's good to see you. Another amazing clean water activist. I know Drusilla is very, very active and goes to a lot of the marches. And again, that's one thing that is incredible about Florida. Today we're going to talk about a lot of the issues that Florida faces with the water, but I think it needs to always be thought of in the context that for all of those issues, there is also a huge amount of activists and a huge amount of activism, and the activists down there are approaching it from every type of angle. People are, hitting it through the pollution aspect. They're hitting it through the nutrient aspect, the fertilizer. There's industrial agriculture. There are so many, and again, it's all tied into the economy. You can't just stop everything. The economy would come to a crashing halt. At the same time, you can't poison your generation and future generations just so you can employ a certain amount of people. There must be some sort of common ground, and the people of Florida have elected to help them find that common ground have turned their backs on them. I mean, there is some debate, and I'm sure we'll hear it today over the new governor. There's a lot of new hope over Governor DeSantis to see if he might be able to make any sort of headway. Oh, hi, Cheryl. Oh, my gosh. So, everybody, we have Cheryl on with us today, and Cheryl is one of the main activists that really was able to tie in environmental pollution to cancer and the cancer clusters that were happening out at Bayshore. So that's really awesome. And Cheryl, please jump in at any time. Documentary is hopefully going to be coming out in a few months. It's still a little bit secret and a little under wraps, but it's going really well, and the editing's good, and it does focus on environmental issues that give excessive cancer rates. So it's a very similar topic to that. Hi, Emerald. Nice to see you. And glad you joined us today. Excuse me. Yeah, and that's the other thing about Florida that I wanted to mention is cancer clusters. I myself have been battling cancer since 2005. It's an ongoing battle. It will never go away. And so I'm very interested in how environmental areas affect the cancer rates. And what I did find is that in Florida, there is at least 6 times the national average cancer rates and birth defect rates, which is based mostly on pollution, although it's very difficult to get doctors to attach these two things together for various reasons: political, economical, social. There's a lot of factors that the doctors have to do. Plus, it's very hard for them. They don't want to just give give an opinion. They want to make sure they have all their facts in. So it's something that I know that they're looking into. And they have to get a little bit better, and hopefully there'll be more answers there, because Florida itself has a lot of cancer clusters. As a matter of fact, in Florida, the number one cause of death is cancer. So, and that only started in 2011. So it's only a new issue. So something happened around then that allowed whatever's going on down there to just get out of control. And so we are seeing that now, that cancer is the leading cause of death in Florida. A lot of it has to do with the radiation and the pollution. So there's water dangers and there's on-land dangers as well. So anyway, we have a couple issues going on there. So let me just check this out. Okay, so what else do we say? Oh, Molly's here. Hey, Molly. Everybody, Molly is another amazing clean water activist. She's currently fighting Mosaic in DeSoto County. In DeSoto County, they are trying to block Mosaic from expanding their mines and expanding all of their, mining further and further, and causing more issues that will lead to more pollution. So Molly is awesome. Molly works really hard. And there's my Aunt Betsy. Hey, Aunt Betsy, average age of residence. And Nilza, hello, Nilza. And so anyway, Molly is out there. She's doing protests. I know she's very active in water testing. And that's the other thing that's amazing, is in so many of these communities, people are taking it into their own hands. They're tired of being let down by politicians and by government structures and county commissioners, as I understand. So they are doing their own water testing, and they are raising their own voice. And it really is amazing because they're being heard. And to me, it's a hope spot. It's a spot where every community around the world, and well, especially around America, can look and say, you know what? we want to make sure that our kids have safe water. We want to make sure we're not being poisoned when we go in the shower. We want to make sure that we're not going to get cancers and our animals are not going to die of tumors and cancers as well. And it's, we deserve that. It's a Rousseau social contract. So, and they're doing it, and their voices are being heard. And it's not an easy battle, but it's pretty amazing. Like I said, Florida, I think, has some of the strongest environmental activism that I've seen around the world. So, wow, Cheryl, see? They just kind of, they create the runaround. They create the runaround. It's, it's incredible how they, are able to sort of give that. They're always able to find an official way, Now, one thing I've noticed is a lot of these companies are allowed to lobby. And you can actually go to an amazing website. I'll put the link down below after we're done, called opensecrets.org. And you can type in your local politician and see who donates to them. And then it will give you a bit of an insight into how they're voting water-wise. So yeah, I think that would be it's a very interesting source. I use it all of the time. And it does help show you, because once you understand which businesses are donating the most amount, then your politicians sort of have tied hands and they have to do their best. And it's a difficult spot as to where the politicians can help and where they're harming. So we're finding that to be, to be sort of, I think, the critical area here in Florida, which again is why we come back to DeSantis. Thank you, Drusilla. Yes. Let me see. I got to see what your comment says. Yeah, thank you. Honestly, it is. It's lighting. No, no. I feel good. The cancer is something you just work around. But the thing about it is that's just my thing that happened to me, and it's what I have to deal with. But we all face something, some form of illness or some sort of traumatic issue or a cross that we need to bear, and it activates us and it motivates us to change and to do better. And I think all of us walk around with that. So my journey is no different than everyone else's journey, in so many aspects. Different concerns and different set of parameters, but overall, it's great because a lot of people do what I do, which is you just take that and you turn it into something positive. My time here is a big question mark. So I'm hoping, like everybody that's actually I see on this chat, I know everybody wants to do the same thing, make a big change that way outlasts us. A change we'll never see is a change worth making. So, yeah, Drusilla, Molly. Hi, Rhonda. Nice to see you. Yeah. And you're right, Camilla, everyday heroes. That's the thing is, a lot of times people think it's like an epic battle, but when I travel and I see activism around the world, what I see are people that just say, not in my neighborhood anymore. Not my kids, not my grandkids, not me, and not my future generations. And these people stand up, and it's really amazing, because you have to have a passion to stand up against a whole system that's been running for 30, 40 years before you, and it'll run another 100 years after you. But you need to throw your body into those gears, and that's what causes change. And all of us have our ways we can do that. And again, that's what I love about Florida is everybody is doing that down there. People, the marches are fantastic, and everybody involved in all the marches, hats off to you, because that shows the world that you guys care, and that makes the world care, and it's a great thing, So you guys are very inspiring, and that's why it's an honor to have so many great Florida people here today. I was waiting for a call from Stel, and I'm not sure if we're having some technical issues. Stel, if you are you there? You can message me as well if you're having an issue, any kind of issue. Or perhaps you might not be able to make it today. It's no problem. If that's the case, we can always reschedule. But let's see. Vic. Yeah. By the way, okay, that's right. And Vic's another activist. And he was saying, Colleen, very nice cleanup. Oh, wait 1 second, everybody. I'll be right back. Okay, here we go. We've got Stel coming up. And give me 1 second. Oops. Hello, how are you doing? Hi, good. Thank you for joining. Here, wait 1 quick second. We are having as always, a little technical issue here. We're going to go to. Okay, here you are. Okay. And I'm going to put you in the scene. There you go. Okay. Thanks so much for joining today, by the way. I know you're very busy. I was looking at everything you guys do, and it definitely. Here we are. Okay, sorry, 1 more second. Here we go. Now we're all caught up. And
Okay.
da, da, da. Boom. There we go. Okay. Hey, there you are. Thank you. So, let's see. Let me just pop this up. Okay. Now. All right. Now, great. So, what I wanted to start off with is if you could just tell us about your organization and what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. Fight for Zero. We fight for zero pollutants, illness, um, anything to do with water, air, soil, contaminants. And how I got started was in 2013. I heard that you also have battled cancer. And I also have battled cancer. And it all started with me battling cancer.
Mm.
In 2013, my uncle, who's not related to us, was diagnosed with lymphoma. Then our family dog was diagnosed with cancer. And then a few months later, my little brother at the age of 21 was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then a few months later, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then my father was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And that started my journey into researching the history and our area here on the east coast of Florida, because I started getting suspicious when my specialists and all my doctors kept asking me, looking for answers on our water quality and our environment. And I came across just so much disturbing information. It's really interesting when you start actually looking into this stuff and gaining knowledge on what's really going on, just how much you uncover around the state, around our area, even in your own neighborhood, in your own backyard, in your drinking water, your well water. You start learning about how the water flows, how the water operates, everything. And then you start realizing this is serious, because it's not just my health, but my next door neighbors were diagnosed with cancer. My people that I grew up with were diagnosed with cancer, and I had them. A lot of people weren't like me. I was very open about my cancer journey. I shared it through a blog, and a lot of people would reach out to me behind the scenes and say, hey, I was diagnosed with cancer too. And it would be somebody that I graduated with. So what's very unique about Fight for Zero is we're connecting the environment and the health issues. So we've got our own reporting form for the whole entire state of Florida, where you can go on and self-report your diagnosis information. And what we do is we map it on a map, and then we were able to uncover the satellite beach issues here on the East Coast. And we've got other cancer clusters, and we're starting to be able to see the heat maps come about. And then that's when we start testing. Fight for Zero will go out and test that water for contaminants, and we test it for VOCs, PFAS. PFAS is a new thing to the state of Florida, but it's not a new thing to our nation or to Washington, D.C. We've gone to Washington, D.C. on the PFAS chemical, which is found in firefighting foam, or, it's a I want to do it in simple terms. It's so hard not to say it scientifically so that people can understand what you're speaking of. But this is a chemical that's extremely dangerous. It's a forever chemical. It's in a lot of our waterways, especially here on the East Coast. And we just can't seem to get our state leaders to do any policies to help us combat just that one particular contaminant. And we know that it causes cancer. There's studies out there that it causes health issues. So we were able to uncover that those chemicals were here. And when you find one particular chemical, you're most likely going to find other ones if they were sloppy with one chemical. So it's just it's a long list of things that are going on here in the state of Florida.
Wow. Whether you definitely have your challenges cut out for you there. Now, did you get what kind of pushback have you got from the medical community? Have they been very willing and open to accept environmental issues? Like with my cancer, my doctors would never allow it to be environmental. They always told me it could just had to be genetic, although they still can't diagnose it.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because up north and we had genetic testing done and it came back that we had no mutating genes. So at that point, our doctors couldn't deny it anymore. They were like, well, this is not genetic. We have paperwork that says this is not genetic. And we have what's really disturbing is what we're seeing through our data collecting is because a lot of people will say, oh, you guys have a lot of tourists that come down there and older people that retire down there. So, of course, there's going to be higher rates of cancer. But in our data, we're seeing lifelong residents in their 20s getting diagnosed with rare cancers and cancers that are unheard of being diagnosed in that age frame. And that's where the concern lays, because it's like, why are all these, and we're seeing it even more interesting is about every 10, 15 years is you see this big rise in cancer cases in certain areas. So it's not, our data is showing something completely different. It is people that have been lifelong residents, generations of people that have lived here that are getting diagnosed with cancer. And we're not getting, my one of the oncologists that helped us here on the East Coast, she actually spoke out. And it's very difficult for the medical community to speak out because they're afraid to. They're worried to speak out and get some pushback from, say, the government or losing their jobs or whatever reason. They can't be as outspoken. But behind closed doors, I am constantly told by nurses, doctors, oncologists, specialists that they believe in what I'm doing and they believe that there is something going on here. And they will even say, I won't even drink the water. And some of the offices, I've had doctors tell me, we have our water delivered here and we don't want them drinking our water, anybody in the office drinking our water. Yeah. So, those are some interesting details.
Wow. Wow. It is in those little details that it's just, I think it's amazing what you guys have done. So you've opened it up so that you have it open so that anybody that lives down there can submit what's happening to them and sort of give you guys more of a database. What are your hopes that all of the residents, that you'll be able to accomplish for everybody down there by collecting all the information?
Well, we believe that data drives everything. You're constantly getting officials that are trying to discredit or disprove, your theories or make us feel like we're crazy and telling us that we're not experiencing what we're experiencing, for instance. And so when you have the data to back it up, I believe that it really drives change. And if, for instance, this isn't cheap. Okay. Testing runs in thousands of dollars. So when we have this testing, it has to be credited. There's like little details like that. But we're able to say, well, here is the data, here's the science, and we're able to undoubtedly prove that these chemicals are here. And by doing that, we're able to push for change, whether it's change in policy, change in, what they're doing, like if they're, discontinuing certain chemicals, for instance. And you have somebody coming on that's going to talk about rights of nature, and we're actually going to be pushing for that as well here on the East Coast.
Good. Okay.
So we do have a lot of different things that we try to do with the data and bring awareness. I think the most important thing is bringing awareness and educating people because a lot of people don't have any clue what is going on around them.
Yeah. So you found that a lot of, so it's amazing, huh? Like people don't connect it. A lot of people don't connect it. If I wanted to ask your advice, if somebody lives in Florida and they say, I've been down at the beach for a bit and I'm starting to feel a little sick. What do you guys recommend to do? Should they get in touch with you guys sort of first as a point for, for where to look or what sort of information to get as like a resource?
Yeah, I think there's many resources. I always, tell everybody consult your doctor first and foremost, because they're the experts in that. But yeah, team at fightforzero.org. We have a whole entire team that's dedicated to helping direct people to the right resources. We'll connect them to another organization that may know more about the flesh-eating bacteria, for instance, or things that are going on with blue-green algae, or so they can reach out to our team at fightforzero.org, and we can help them in that way as far as giving them resources.
Okay, great. Great. Yeah, it is amazing what you guys are doing down there. Do you what do you think about the politics? I mean, it's obviously a very touchy subject,
It
but
is.
overall, do you feel that politics is moving towards towards the right direction, or what can everybody do to sort of step in to get it going that way?
Okay, well, I have a lot of thoughts, obviously, on this, but one of the things that I always tell everybody is that, in the state of Florida, I know we do not have enough civic engagement and we don't have enough people paying attention. And because people haven't paid attention for so long, they're getting away with the things they're getting away with. And I think the first step is obviously, learning and gaining knowledge into the issues and what is going on here in the state of Florida. But then action. Facebook is not action, for instance. Facebook is a great place for your voice, but it's not a good place for action. If you really want something done, you need to reach out to your local officials, your representatives, write them and put it in writing. And the way you can view it is, this is public record. This is history now. You have now written a piece of trying to change something into history, so it's on public record. You want it on public record. These people need to know that we care enough about our water quality, about what is going on, our health, our neighbors, our communities, and our children and our pets. And I'm always saying, write them. Now, does it mean they will listen? There's no guarantees, but you have to come together and you have to write your officials and try to make a difference by getting involved. And when we say getting involved, we don't mean you need to stop what you're doing and go to all of the meetings. Activists like us, we're at every meeting that we need to be at, and we're doing it so that we can relay that information to you guys here, so you can actually write and be informed and know what is going on, and step up when it's really needed.
It sounds like, is it raining over where you are? It is,
Yes,
okay.
it's sprinkling. It's sunny, but it's
Yeah,
sprinkling.
rainbows. That's good.
Yeah.
does does it worry you though, in a sense that the rain is the groundwater coming back in?
Vaporizing the yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I worry the most about air, because it's usually air is one of the worst exposures as far as toxins. You've got plumes and things like that, and then of course consumption, which is like water, or fish. For instance, we talk about the fish that are in our Indian River Lagoon, and we're just shocked at the amount of people that still eat the fish out of there when they're riddled with tumors, for instance. But yeah, there's a lot of worry that sticks in the back of my mind even when I go to the beach. I'm really freaked out about getting any cuts from the shells now because I'm scared I'm going to get flesh-eating bacteria. It's, when you start gaining insight, but that's what really drives us and pushes us to really want to make change, because we shouldn't have to go to our peaceful place, sitting on the beach, trying to get that peace of mind. And we can't even get that peace of mind because all we're thinking about is what is in that water.
Well said. Yeah. Well said. And I was going to ask that too. Do you and your family, do you guys still go in the water, and do you still go to the beach? Do you think that it's sort of being overblown, or is it not being reported enough as far as the water quality?
I just think it's not being reported enough. I don't think there's enough being done. I think, it's you've got all of us activists trying so hard to get the word out and to try to bring awareness to these issues, and it just feels like we've got the Department of Health and the Environmental Protection Agency and just people just dragging their feet, and it's these are people's lives. These are people, they're losing limbs. They're coming to visit Florida because they're trying to get away from everyday life. And it's a beautiful place. This is home for us, and we want to save it and we want to protect it. And it's really important to us to do this. And it should be important to people that don't live here too. When they come, they should be able to enjoy clean beaches and the things that we enjoy on a day-to-day basis.
Now, so you were saying that you think the air is one of the biggest issues. Because I was going to ask you, what is, in your mind, the first biggest priority to tackle?
Well, I mean, water is definitely probably the first one I would say, but that's just because we have so many issues across the entire state. Like, for instance, Fight for Zero did a statewide study on the drinking water at 67 counties schools, and it was really alarming because one of the things is there's a lot of inconsistencies across the state of Florida when it comes to their protocol, like whether it's the Florida Department of Health collecting cancer cases or, them doing testing. There's no consistency across the state. It's something that we've really have noticed when it comes to the things that are going on. And so you've got BMAA issue, you've got your blue-green algae, BMAA, you've got cyanobacteria, and then we've got the PFAS issue. So there's all kinds of contaminants that people are consuming on a daily basis. But then you've got, your drinking water has chlorine, high amounts of chlorine. So there's other concerns with that as well. So I think there's a mixture with water. And when I say air, I think that's more scary for me personally, because with water, at least I can filter my water and I can take proactive measures to protect myself and not go swimming or not go to the beach. Got blue-green algae and you're living off the canal, for instance, and you're breathing that in. What can you do? Stay inside. The air can. So that's more scarier for me, is the air, to be honest.
Yeah, it is such a crazy thing because there's so much of there's some things you can. So
Yes, absolutely.
so let's see.
I agree.
Somebody say by delivery water. Oh, I was wondering if anybody had any questions for Stel too while she's still here. And let's see now. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I've seen if anybody has any questions down there. It looks like everybody's just kind of interested and watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, for me, it's very amazing what you do because out here I'm very isolated in the sense of having cancer and thinking it's environmental, and everyone out here says no, the doctors are against it. So it's very inspirational that you guys are there, and I think it's great that you're giving everybody a voice and everybody an opportunity to get the information they need and also, know what to avoid and know where to go. Like I was saying, one thing that I saw was a couple radon tests that were at least double allowable legal limits in elementary school drinking fountains. And it makes me think of the more vulnerable in the communities. You've got the elderly, you've got convalescent centers that are just drinking the municipal water. And like you were saying, that can't be filtered 100%. That is, it's up to them, not, not to use. So it's what other chemicals, or what did you find was the most alarming chemical in the elementary school drinking waters that you guys tested?
So, well, the first thing was there was a few elementary schools that were still on well water, and they were only testing for the bare minimal, which was like bacteria, which was extremely concerning for me. And you could find that study on our website. But one of the main, things is lead, obviously. You saw what happened at Flint, Michigan. And I think it's something that we really need to take seriously and combat immediately, especially when it comes to our children, because they're the most susceptible because they're still growing, and I worry a lot about our children, especially here in the state of Florida. And if they're being exposed to anything environmental or something in their drinking water, I just feel like they're really susceptible to future illness. And I think that we as parents really need to unite, grandparents and anybody that has even their animals. I mean, this is affecting so many things around the state of Florida. But yeah, lead was one of the main concerns, because it's something that you can't taste and you can't see. And that's like PFAS chemicals. A lot of people just out of sight, out of mind with these things. And it's frustrating because it's like these contaminants are so dangerous. And you really need to learn about things like lead and PFAS. I mean, we found that PFBA, which is a part of the PFAS chemical family, is in the drinking water at some of our beachside schools here. And if you look up the toxicology to that, it says that it causes kidney issues and thyroid issues. And we see a high rate of thyroid issues across the state of Florida. And so what we're trying to do is just connect the dots at the end of the day. So it's going to take a lot of testing. We've been working with a university to try to get blood testing done on residents, so that way we can see how high their PFAS levels are in their blood. These are the things that we need to continue pushing for, these scientific studies, because that's what's going to drive this.
Wow. Well, thank you guys for doing those tests. I mean, that's incredible to know. And I mean, it's so crazy because people just assume that there's some sort of an agency already testing for that, or helping them, or guiding, protecting them. So it's, I guess a lot of people are learning that that doesn't exist, and you guys are doing it.
We have to push for it. We have to really advocate. You have to write the Florida Department of Health and whoever else and say, we want tests. We want this done. You just got to keep pushing and advocating. And it takes more than just 5 of us. And we have a campaign where we put more than 5, because it really is more than 5 of us really trying to combat all these issues. And we really need to stay together on these issues. They may be different kinds of issues, but at the end of the day, it comes down to one thing: clean water. And, our aquifer here in the state of Florida is unique, and we're all connected to that.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Perfectly said. Let's see. Well, I do have a question. Debbie is wondering how the Pasco County ocean waters are.
The ocean waters.
Yeah.
To be truthful, the ocean waters, I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything recently on their ocean waters.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't. But I will say this past week we've had a lot of sewage dumps. So it's incredible the amount of sewage dumps we've had. But
yeah, that's a whole other new layer.
Yeah,
huh?
I know. But yeah.
The Emerald had a question. If you could help us, they said, what are PFOs?
So PFOS and PFOA is a chemical that you can find in firefighting foam and popcorn bags, and it's like a coating that it's waterproof. So that's the simple terminology of it. And it's basically it's a forever chemical, which means, for instance, if it's in your blood, it takes about 8 years to get out of your blood. It's persistent in the environment, and it's a nationwide issue. And Erin Brockovich covers a lot about it. She was, one of the leading people who really brought it to light. It's really prevalent on our military bases because they use it in their firefighting foam. And where does the firefighting foam? It gets washed down into the canals and the river. And so there's a lot of drinking water across the states too. So what we've done as Fight for Zero is we tried to team up with organizations nationally and here in the state of Florida, because we truly believe that, connecting our efforts with other people is going to make us stronger and really get us further, rather than trying to do it all on our own. So I'm a part of an amazing national group that combats the PFAS issues. And we were able to go to Washington, D.C., and now they have over 20 bills introduced to combat the PFAS issue. So there's some movement going on with that. I'm very disappointed in our state officials and the fact that they haven't introduced anything here for the state of Florida to protect the communities. There's no reason why there's nothing there to protect us from these chemicals. They don't need to be here. They just need to go. There's no point. There's no reason, and they're harmful.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. Unnecessary.
Yeah, unnecessary. Absolutely. And it's just mind blowing, because a lot of these chemicals, they don't test prior to putting out on the market. So for instance, there's a history with Radium Girls, and if anybody's watching this, read up on Radium Girls. It really reminds me of that situation when they were using radium and they put it in makeup and toothpaste, and they just put it out on the mass market for consumers, and that's kind of what they did with the PFAS. So
They do, and they say it's good. It's good for you. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Fluoride. Well, that's a whole other podcast in its own.
Oh, yes, yeah. You could do a whole pod. I thought you're not going to have enough time on the water issues because we could go over drinking water for a whole hour and then well water, and it's
Yeah, it's
insane.
so true. I'm thinking we're probably gonna have to actually come back and do another one because I have so many more
Yeah.
questions for you, and we are kind
Yes.
of running out of time
Okay.
here. But I did have a question. I mean, there are thousands of questions, but what what would you like for everybody to know that I haven't covered today? What would be important to you to sort of tell everybody today? Maybe something that I haven't
Yeah.
asked or anything that's on your mind.
I just think it's really important. We need your support. We need you. We just need your support, whether that you know following and staying informed. That's the first thing. Using your voice, going to your neighbor when you see them at the grocery store and saying, hey, did you hear what's going on with the water issues? um, it's really important. We need your support. If you live in the state of Florida, this is an important issue. This is our livelihoods. This is our health. This is our future generations. And that is just the ending message I want to get across. We need your support.
I like that, because a lot of people say, oh, people are a problem and humans do create all of the issues. But I think the thing that gets lost often is that humans are also the only solution that we have. And
Yes.
so I think yeah, it's great. And so if anybody hasn't already been there, you can go to the website, which is fightforzero.com. Is that right? Okay.
Org.
.org. Yes,
Org. Uh-huh.
fightforzero.org. And it's a great website. I've been reading it all week. It's amazing. There's so much information there, so much resource, and it's beautiful. So jump on over to the website.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Stealth, yeah, thank you for being on the show. Thanks so much. Hopefully, we'll have you back on again soon.
Okay, we'll talk later.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye. Okay, whoop. Here we go. And there we go. So that was amazing, huh? Such a well spoken and such a powerhouse of getting things, getting things done. Oops, sorry. Here we go. Sorry about that. That's the one I need. NDI. Okay, sorry. A few technical difficulties. But Stel was incredible. Thank you, Stel, again for being on there. And I saw there's so many more questions for her. And I know, like I said, go to the website. It's amazing. Fight40.org. And you can share your stories. You can get resources. You can help donate or just get educated. And like she was saying, just talk to people as you're out there. Rights of Nature, Karl Deigert to come on soon. Yes. And yeah, I know, Debbie, it's such a complicated issue. I mean, there's just so many layers, and it's a shame because a lot of times it's put on just the local, it's put on us. So there we go. I just got a Skype hello. Hello. So okay, let's see. Coming on next soon is going to be Colleen Marie, who's going to talk to us about. She's been going out and has a very, very frontline approach to getting out and making a change as well. So, and yes, Cheryl, yeah, Stel is incredible. That's the thing is you guys are all part of this huge army and everybody is fighting a different aspect. And Stella is collecting and organizing all of this information and trying to work with politicians to bridge that gap that has been missing for a long time. So, okay, 1 second. We have Colleen calling in. Hello, 1 second here. We're going to put you on. Here we go. Where are you? Hey, there you are. Oh, nice background. Okay. Here we go. One quick sec. All right. Okay. You were able to see Stella when she was on before? Okay, good. Good. Here we go. And let me just fix this real fast so that you're centered. Here we go. Uh-oh. All right. A few technical difficulties as we get here. The water issues here. 1 second. And here we go. All right. And boom. Okay. Here we go. So it's a little askew, but we'll make it work. Okay, there we go. Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
All right. So thank you so much like I said, for being here today with us. Now you do a lot with you do a lot with the water fight. So what I wanted to talk to you about is if you can help people that don't live in Florida sort of understand the wider scope of what's happening down there at the moment.
Well, sure. Well, basically, since we've had Hurricane Irma come through, we've had a monster algae situation down here, which has been what would be our normal red tide event that became exacerbated through nutrient pollution from flooding and runoff, and also we ended up having a blue-green algae outbreak from water releases from the Caloosahatchee River from Lake Okeechobee. And all of these algae coming together basically turned into one big monster toxic water situation. So making everybody sick, from our pets sick, killing millions of tons of wildlife, marine life. And yeah, I mean, it was a very sad situation that we had. And luckily we've had a little bit of a reprieve when it comes to, what we've been seeing, but, it's still very much something fresh in many of our heads down here. And, we're still fighting to bring awareness about the issues because things still aren't back to normal per se.
Wow. So now so you saw all these water issues happening around you. What was your solution to it? How did you get involved and what did you start doing?
Well, I'm an avid kayaker, and I started seeing all the wildlife around me dying. And, I'm also a wildlife and nature photographer, and I would be out taking pictures on the beaches of sunset and seeing just fish and every type of thing dying and washing up and people coughing and getting sick. And I started educating myself a little bit more about our red tide issues here, and then realized that this isn't your normal natural red tide event that we would see down here. And that's when I started researching more and, go through and really start working on trying to figure out different thing, or try to get out and try to show people what's going on, because I started finding everything was naturally occurring, everything's fine, don't worry about it. And people going to the beach and their hotels are telling them everything's fine. Things on the news were very subdued, half-truths and things like that. And, our local politicians and stuff were in complete denial of anything besides a naturally occurring event. And so I took it upon myself to start traveling a little over a year ago, actually last week, traveling around Florida from Marco Island, visiting a total of 28 locations and doing live Facebook feeds and taking photos and showing people really what was happening and bringing them along my educational journey about the water quality. So they were bringing you in to learn with me as I'm learning what was happening, what are all these things, going to scientists and learning a little bit more and things like that. So, and here we are today.
How did you find people? Were people really responsive when you were doing the live videos?
It was a mixed crowd. People who were aware, yes, very much, very supportive. But the people who weren't aware, they hated the fact that I was out there doing it. They thought I was bringing a bad name to Florida. They thought, I've received threats. I received a lot of nasty, responses from people because they didn't want that. They didn't want the image of paradise to be destroyed. But, any tourist that comes down here and sees, dead fish covering our beaches, that's obviously a red flag right there, or if they're getting sick from being on the beaches or being on the river with the blue-green algae and things like that. So, it was something that, it was really hard to get through past the denial. And it's gotten a little bit better, but it's still very much there, especially when it comes to the higher ups and the decision makers in the state. Mm-hmm.
Now you know, so now the situation now, okay, a lot of people have moved into Florida, you know, and it's a vacation destination. It's also a retirement destination. It's also, you know, for people that love the ocean, it's a destination to move to. It's kind of a dream. You know, you've got your own sort of like coral reefs, and you know, it's a beautiful sort of Caribbean in the U.S. But people that have just moved down there that may or may not have heard about all this, since a lot of the information, although the activists are pushing it out, is still not being told on a national level. What kind of advice would you give to people that just moved down and went, oh my gosh, you know, am I allowed to go in the ocean? Can I drink my tap water? What, you know, what resource should I go to? Or, you know, what about the people that are now?
Well, I mean, resources are lacking. There's not a lot of information out there, and that's the biggest issue that we have, is that we do not have a strong enough and trustworthy enough testing network being done by the state. So we're not getting enough information, you know, as to what is happening. We do have, you know, situations like the Healthy Beaches program, where you can go to the beaches. They test. The Department of Health goes through and tests the beaches, but they're not necessarily testing for certain things that are present in the water, especially during the situation we were seeing last year. You know, last year I'd see red tide warning signs, you know, caution, it can make you sick, respiratory issues and all this. But then the Department of Healthy Beaches saying the beach is healthy, it's all clear, come on in. And that's just no, you know, that if someone can get sick, whether it's respiratory or anything, the beach should not be open. People should not be swimming. And, you know, yes, it's going to hurt our tourism at the end of the day, but there are also a lot of things to do off the beaches down here. And so we don't want to scare everybody away, because there is a lot to see. There's still a lot to do here in Florida, but maybe some days you can't go to the beach. Or if you want to go to the beach, go, but make sure you don't have like an autoimmune deficiency or any type of immune compromised issue. Make sure you don't have any open wounds. Make sure, you know, you haven't had recent surgeries or anything like that, because you are at higher risk of picking up certain type of things, you know, like the Vibrio that you've been hearing about and things like that, you know. So it's something that we don't have enough awareness, and we can be screaming from the rooftops every day, all of us activists, but we need the awareness to come from a higher level. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's been the one that has gotten a lot of attention recently, and people have been a little, you know, kind of crazy about it. Like flesh-eating disease, if you go in the water, you will come out with a half an arm, you know, it'll just be dissolved, you know, and they kind of are giving it that fear tactic. When you guys are down there on the front lines and you see those kind of fear tactics being used, you know, what runs across your mind when you?
I kind of cringe. I cringe when people say, oh, don't come, don't be here, and things like that. Someone who works in the tourism industry and everything like that, we do rely on our tourism, and we need to be able to have them here. However, it's up to us to give them the correct information. The fear tactics does not help resolve issues, and it's not going to help bring more awareness. You're just going to scare people away and things like that. You know, it's more about awareness. What can we do to avoid these things? Is it a hot day? Is it low tide? Is the water brackish? Things like that. People need to be educated more so as to when they would be more susceptible to these things. You know, this time of year, the water is extremely warm, especially this year because we've had a very hot summer. So that is, you know, one of the three things that these type of bacteria like to, you know, have to form. So when the water is really warm, if it's very turbid, turned up and everything like that, if it's very brackish or, you know, a mix of fresh and salt water and darkened tannins, you may not want to go in the water if you find that you have an issue where you have open wounds or you do have any type of, you know, illness or anything like that. It's just smarter to stay away at that time. I'm not telling everyone just go swimming, but be cautious, be aware. You know, I will admit I've only gone in the water once in the last year, so I can't be like I'm in there every day, but I do know people who go in all the time, and I kayak all the time, and I haven't had any issues. But again, I also know that I don't have any medical issues that I'm too scared of, or, you know, too nervous about going or touching the water with. So, but recently I had surgery, so I didn't go in the water at all or go anywhere until all my incision wounds were completely healed. I didn't even go near it because I didn't want to risk that. So, but people who are just coming here, they don't know these things because, again, it comes down to there's no awareness at the end of the day. So, but I am glad to say, though, when we started to see the uptick in cases of the Vibrio and things throughout the state, we did get a lot more press coverage and things like that. So that did help bring more awareness to the issue. But, I do kind of get nervous when people are like, no, just stay away, stay away, stay away, because, you don't, again, it's just, we need to make people aware of what the situation is instead of just like, stop, so, yeah.
Overreaction.
Yeah. I just don't want to, I don't want to scare everybody away because we want people to come down here. And, like Stel was saying, we all came down here for the paradise, for the endless summers and everything. And we want other people to come down and have that. We want our future, generations to still be able to have that too. So instead of scaring everyone away, let's start bringing awareness versus fear into play with all this.
Nice. Well said. Well said. Yeah, that's a good change. Now, do you think that, how do you see what's the next step as far as trying to get the water back into place? I know there's multitude of issues that is being attacked.
Yes.
That the water is being attacked by right now. But do you see it in community activism, or do you see it in politics, or do you see it?
I see a lot of community activism. I also see a lot of the local colleges and universities and local waterkeeper organizations and things really stepping up and doing the work that our state hasn't done. Our state has brought in, our new governor has brought in good things like, bringing in the blue-green, algae task force and the red tide task force and doing more research, which is good to have. But we also need action with addressing the sources of pollution. And so we are seeing a lot of other scientists coming out and just taking charge, and they're the ones who are getting answers and doing the research on the blue-green algae and the cyanobacteria issues that we are currently dealing with in certain areas around the state. We're not really seeing red tide right now. I think the last report didn't even show any in Southwest Florida at all. However, we do see different areas of Southwest Florida that is being, impacted by different various forms of cyanobacteria like Lingvia as well as blue-green algae this year. And then, we have a major issue right now with sewage dumps. We are in the height of our rain season. We have had an extreme amount of rain, especially in the last 2 weeks. And every day my phone and my emails, because I get all the Department of Health, information and everything, my inbox is full of just notices of sewage dumps happening all over the state, the Gulf. So, and those are all factors that feed these algae blooms, so it's not even just our runoff, from our own fertilizer that we're using in our backyards and the herbicide spraying that the state does in a lot of the waterways. You have the mosaic mines and stuff with their runoff and all their issues. You have our agricultural issues. We have, the big sugar issues with Lake Okeechobee. You have everything that flows down from the north into Lake Okeechobee too, that feeds these algae blooms, and it exacerbates them into these monster blooms that we tend to see. And there's been nothing done to address those. And that's where I really have an issue with how things are progressing within the state, is that no one's done anything to stop the points of pollution that are causing and exacerbating these issues.
Yeah, it sounds like it's in the hands of the activists. And, again, in Florida, I found the most amazing level of activism, very involved, without causing too much issue. I will say in California, we don't really have that same level out here, so it is incredible that everybody has kind of picked it up. Now, when you see the state information or, Visit Florida or, Disney World, or you see all the promotion, what do you think is the number one misunderstanding that people have about Florida right now with the information we get?
Well, I think that even last year it comes down to they don't want to admit there's a problem because our number one driver of our economy in Florida is tourism. So they don't want it to affect our tourism. We saw that happen last year, and a lot of companies took really big hits. People lost their businesses, people lost their entire lives. Unfortunately, some people ended up committing suicide because they lost their livelihood, and so while they're pushing these tourism campaigns, people are becoming more aware because at that point we were getting a lot of national attention finally about our issues here, but it scared a lot of people away. So we do have to be careful with the way that we go around it because we don't want it to impact our economy to the point that all of us lose our jobs and our livelihoods as well. But we do need to the state does need to sometimes step back and stop these tourism campaigns right now. They're push Disney's fine. But when last year I'm finding dead dolphins washing up on the beaches here in Naples. I found three in one morning on the beaches in Naples, and I'm sitting there crying over a dolphin. Later that afternoon, the city of Naples announces that they started a whole big tourism campaign called Our Beaches Are Clear. And when I heard that, that just broke me because I'm sitting here spending months on end at that point, traveling these beaches and trying to bring awareness. And then you have your elected officials turning around and putting money instead of towards trying to resolve and figure out what's causing these issues and addressing these issues to welcoming more tourists here. And that's where the disconnect is. And that's where I have a problem with the tourism campaigns is a lot of money needs to be going towards, addressing the sources of pollution, and no one's doing that. And that's really what kind of gets to me when it comes to this.
Now, what do you think about? I know you use Facebook as a very powerful tool. I've watched a lot of your live videos, and it's great because you take people out into the water. You show them exactly what's happening. How do you think that, or what are your thoughts on how technology has been able to help us activists, or how it's been able to help unify or create this movement?
It could be a great tool and it can be a great enemy at the same time with a lot of things that you do in activism. For me, it has Facebook and Twitter and Instagram have all been very big tools I've utilized to help bring awareness because I had no other way to reach, beyond my own nose because I didn't know enough people to be like, hey, I could tell my neighbors all day, but they're like, yeah. But if I can get out to, a couple 100,000 people, if I'm lucky, showing them what's happening here, then I'm going to use that tool because that was by a lot of us doing that, it was the only way we got the national attention that this deserved. And so it could be a tool, but I think that we're at the point now where people need to step away a little bit more from social media and get out there and actually start taking action. You can do things as simple as starting in your own backyard as to what is if you're living in a community down here, a lot of the communities, especially where I am in Naples, are all gated communities. So what is your HOA using, or who, the landscaping company that they hire, what are they dumping into your backyard that's ending up in the lakes that all of our communities have? It's up in the Gulf, and so there's a lot of things that we could start doing. Also, like Stel was saying, we need to start showing up at meetings and start making your presence known that you want to know these things. You're demanding answers because we're not going to get the answers unless we get out there and really start to demand these things. We should be writing the governor, writing your state senators, writing even, your local, county commissioners and stuff, and demanding answers and action from them. And, and when it comes to voting, use that power, how they're responding to you towards who you're going to vote for next, to try to vote for a better resolution to what's happening here in Florida. It's something that's never truly going to get better unless we start addressing the things that we can control, because climate change very much impacts the way things are happening down here too. But where we can stop things where we can, we should be doing it, and it should have been done by now. So, but it's time for everybody to really start taking action and really start doing more than just typing up statuses and sharing statuses on various social media platforms.
It's good. And, I think you bring up a great point too. A lot of times conservation or environmentalism is sort of on television or movies, or it's a big scope thing. It happens in another country and people go in. But even for me, I traveled around the world, and then I realized that there was more to do in my own backyard. And so activism can start with what kind of bag you put your sandwich in. If you're using a
Yeah,
paper bag instead of a plastic bag. So it's something really important that you bring up, which is that it starts with us, and it can happen. It happens in your own backyard, and
oh,
everybody,
absolutely.
yeah, everybody, building that turns into this huge army
Hmm.
of conservation and change. So I think that
One thing a
that's
lot of people always hear me preach when I do my various litter cleanups and videos from different things I'm seeing is that the action, if all of us take one action, there are millions of us. In Florida alone, there's over 20 million of us living here now. We're adding, I forgot how many a day now. I think it's like over 90 people a day or something are moving down here now. What, if all of us take one little step, that's 20 million steps that we could take to make a difference. That would make a big impact. We don't have to necessarily wait for those fertilizer bans to come into play, demand these things, but start taking the steps, because by us taking action and doing stuff in our own backyards, we're also going to lower the demand for a lot of these things. And they're going to be like, oh, okay, well, maybe we don't need these things, as much. And it would force a switch over anyways to happen. So, we have the power to make a lot of change between our wallets and what the companies and products that we buy and support, as well as, what we do in our own backyards collectively. And that's the thing. It can't be just one or two people. It has to be everyone needs to start taking action.
That's yes, well said. Well said.
Thank you.
Now, anybody, if you want to keep your eye on what's happening, you can follow Colleen Marie's Facebook. She does a lot of live videos, and I actually watch them a lot. And her Facebook page has been a great source for me to learn about a lot of the water issues there. So I highly recommend everybody go and check it out and follow. And yeah, you're always going to learn more. So Colleen,
Learn with folks.
well, thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate it, and I hope you'll come back on another episode soon.
Sure, anytime. Thank you so much. And I'm very glad that you're talking about this topic today, because we need more discussion. So I appreciate that.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. All right, well, there we go, guys. That was Colleen, and she is another water warrior out there. Cheryl says the big misconception is it's not my problem, but it's everyone's problem. We all need water for survival. And that's very well said, Cheryl. That is one of the major issues is that, you know, people think they're on their continent, but your continents are all connected by water. So, oh, wait 1 second here. And okay. So coming up next, we have, let's see, coming up in a minute or two, we are going to have Karl Deigert talk to us about the rights of nature, which is a new movement. So it'll be very cool to see what's going on there. And then we're going to have Michelle join us, Michelle Bisson, to talk to us about what it's like day to day on the water. So Karl Deigert. So we're just waiting for Karl to call. While we're doing that, we'll talk to everybody. Yeah, everybody. Yeah, I'm glad you guys liked Colleen. She is an amazing source. She just decided one day to take her Facebook and go up and down the beaches and show everybody what they were seeing and to show everybody what was happening. And she found dead dolphins. She found a lot of very disturbing things that she then shared. And that's something else I want to bring up. A lot of people that are water warriors, and this goes to everybody that I've met in Florida and everybody that I know that's part of that movement down there, is that it comes at a great personal expense. It comes at a private, heartfelt expense. You go and you put yourself either at the beach, which has tons of toxins, and you're saying, I don't care. I'm still just going to go and show everybody what's happening if I get sick or not. And you guys are all familiar with all the water warriors out there that have done this. Too many to name, but everybody knows, there's a lot of people that are very devoted. And like I said, I think it's very inspiring, but it comes at a personal cost. I know for me traveling, there was always situations you put yourself into that you normally wouldn't put yourself into. because somebody has to take a camera down there and go take a look and see what's happening. So to me, that is an important aspect of what Colleen does, and she's very modest about it. I mean, to see dead dolphins on there, and some of her images were some of the first images that I personally saw about the red tide. So, whether she intended or not, she broke the story in a lot of ways, at least to me, online. And that's the importance, too, of social media, like what we're doing right now. We are sharing everything, and we're creating our own community in our own way to share and break news. And when we're done, we are going to put comments and links in either on YouTube or here on Facebook, so that everybody can always go back and reference everything, and you have a list of links with you, and you have this shared knowledge of all these different water warriors. Camilla, selfless human beings. Yes, they really are. They're an inspiration, I think. Marie says, until the phosphate industry is stopped, it's not going to get better. And that, I understand, that is one of the largest industries in Florida. It's an industry not many people are too aware of. It happens sort of in between the coasts, in the middle, in an area where there's not a lot of tourism per se, as compared to the beaches. And their runoff is incredible. There was a huge sinkhole in 2016 that leaked over 200 million gallons of radioactive water into the aquifer. Now, if you're not from Florida, and everybody from Florida knows this, you're going to think I've said that wrong. The 200 million gallons of radioactive water into the aquifer. And now the company claims that it never left their premises. Not quite sure how, but it never fully happened that way. So anyway, that was what happened with those guys. And so since then, there's been questions as to how far the pollution has gone. Where did it all go? What happened? Did it get absorbed? Did it go to the water? There's a lot of unanswered questions, and it's another example of the lack of regulation and the lack of enforcement of what regulations are in place. Because, when you're dealing with 200 million gallons of radioactive water, there should be some form of, somebody should be looking at you. You can't just, have it in your backpack, just walking on your own saying everything's fine, guys. It just seems a little off to me. Molly Bowen, Nosaic. So yeah, if you want to learn more about mining issues, go to Nosaic. And that group there on Facebook will tell you everything you need to know. Emerald, they've left towns completely radioactive. Yeah, a lot of them will go in, take what they need, and just leave the lands, very unhealthy, not safe to drink the water, not safe for animals, not safe for anything. And that, and then what happens is it turns into fertilizer, right? Phosphate. And then it goes to big ag. And then big ag takes all this horrible stuff and then puts it all over their thing. And then everybody has their yards, and they put their fertilizer on their yards, and all that runs back off into the drains and back into the water. So fertilizer itself, although it is necessary, it is a challenging thing. If there's anybody out there that has more information than I do on fertilizer, please jump in, because I would love to get your comments. We have to find this balance, I think. And again, it comes back to balance. I mean, you can't just have industries making money while people are dying of cancer and children are getting birth defects and sick. It's not okay. And you can't just stop industry either, because industry keeps the state afloat. So it's a very complicated issue. I don't pretend to have an answer or to be too knowledgeable on it. I'm learning a lot from our guests today, and I'm learning a lot every day trying to read, and I try to talk to people that have to work in the water and work with the water. I'd love to hear from some captains or real estate agents, people that run tourism businesses. The water is all your same concern. And no matter what side of it, you guys are on, if the water is good, everything works. No, Debbie, you don't have to move. That's the thing, Debbie. We're talking about, there are certain areas of water that are fine, and I'm going to put some links down underneath. I can't do it right now; it limits my technology, but I'm going to put some links down there where you can see, and you'll see, for example, that they are monitored, red tide and the algae. And also, I will put links to great groups that can give you access to knowing if the waterways you're near are toxic or not, because some waterways do not have issues at the moment flaring up and others do. Candy Luther, that is for sick people that have been affected by the water issues, to discuss that. Not quite sure. Yeah, Colleen, that is true. Leave the lands radioactive, but still do false campaign, saying that they are stewards of Florida's environment. And that's the problem, is that most of the information that is run, aside from these activists, comes from PR companies. So Candy Luther is another amazing water activist. She has been a water activist for a long time and has been fighting for clean water and clean health for a long time, and another one of the inspirational warriors out there. And that's what I mean. There are so many people out there that I meet, that are completely incredible. Emerald, Caroline Smith is on. She made the documentary St. Pete Unfiltered. Ooh, Carolyn, hi. I have not seen this yet. Now I want to watch it. Are you here, Carolyn? Now, Carolyn, I'm also a documentary filmmaker, so for me, I understand your need to get the story out and to say, let's bypass the normal channels that keep this information from happening. Oh, there it is. Okay. So, okay, here we go. Colleen. Okay, that was Colleen. So we're just waiting for our next call. For some reason, we have not heard from Karl. You may be able to call. Karl, if you're out there and you hear me, please give me a call. Eric E. Crown at protonmail.com. And Michelle Bisson is going to call us when? In about 10 minutes. And then we're going to talk to her as well and see what's happening out in the field. So Candy Luther, what are the groups? So what groups know what waters are safe? Very good question. That's a very good question. I think one of the groups that I always go to is the South Florida Water Clean Movement. Sorry. Let's see. 1 second. I'm going to put the link down there because I'm having a hard time saying it right now. And Candy says, let's get the public informed on the dangers that they are being exposed to. Absolutely. And Candy, I know that has been a fight of yours for a long time, and you have been doing that, and you have been an active, vocal person there. Drusilla is also interested in St. Pete Unfiltered. Hey, if you could maybe make a link to St. Pete Unfiltered for us. Emerald says it's a must-see, and that sounds wonderful. So again, Carolyn Smith, if you could maybe put a link for us, I would love to be able to watch that documentary and learn more. And thank you for making that, because I know that it's not easy. Making a documentary is, can be a challenge sometimes. Thank you, Colleen. Southwest Florida Clean Water Movement. Woo! It's a long title, but it's a very important group. It has a lot of members. And here's the thing. If you are thinking, should I go to Florida? Should I cancel my vacation? Don't cancel your vacation. Don't cancel your vacation, but do some research and see. Like Colleen said, if where you're going may have some issues, there are land things you can do as well. And there are other areas of water. Florida itself is not, and I hope people don't think that I'm being irresponsible by saying this, but Florida itself is not a cursed destination, but parts of it are very unhealthy and very dangerous, and the state is not doing its job to warn people. But these groups on Facebook are Southwest Florida Clean Water Movement on Facebook. You can go in and ask, I'm going on vacation here. Is it safe? And you will get true answers from people that live there. You're not going to get a spin. So that's the best thing in the world. Again, I'll put the link down below when we're all done. Vic says don't golf. Oh, Emerald put a link down there, everybody. So you guys can check that out. It's a Vimeo documentary. I can't wait to watch it afterwards. Thanks, Emerald. So we've talked a little bit about, there's kind of a mix. I mean, you have the tourists that are coming down here that don't know where to go or what's happening. And then you've got the residents that, as more information becomes more available, they're starting to find that things that maybe they hadn't connected before to their environment is affecting their health. So it's a very amazing topic. And Florida is one of the biggest destinations. And I want to repeat again, over 120 million visitors a year. And over 110 million of those are from the United States. So when CBS News or ABC News says flesh-eating virus, right? Then we know there's a lot of danger there. There's a lot of the Vibrio. So I was actually going to show you guys a quick video about Vibrio made by Florida, which I want to get your guys' opinion if this shares enough information or not in the height of this information. So let's see what it says now. Here we go. Vibrio.
At the beach, know when to swim it, shore it, or dodge it.
Swim it with a buddy. And when safety flags,
At the beach, know when to swim it, shore it, or dodge it.
swim it with a buddy. And when safety flags and signs say it's good to go.
Shore it on the sand if you have a cut on your skin, a weakened immune system, or if you're by yourself.
Dodge-
Okay. All right. Okay. There we go. Anyway, all right, we're back. So Colleen says Calusa Waterkeeper is another asset. Yeah, Colleen, if you could also put in the notes here, what is the name of the documentary that that they just did a screening of? Because they are doing more work now. I know there's a Toxic Puzzle, which is a great documentary on BMAAs. So just so everybody understands, there's water contamination, there's land contamination, and there's air contamination of BMAAs. So it's a very multifaceted issue here. Candy, correct? Yeah, not enough info. Yeah, Carl's in the house, and I know Carl. Carl also is somebody that has to walk that fine line between his work in activism and trying to clean the waters, and also in tourism. So he understands that the main problem is clean water. And if you can have clean water, you can have everything together. You can have the tourism, you can have a good life, you can have healthy families, and you can have good economy. And it all bases around clean water, which the politicians and a lot of people, and I won't just say the politicians because there may be changes coming, but a lot of them have pushed it aside for the interests of special interests. And again, you can go to opensecrets.org and look at your politician you like, or look at a company and see who they help pay for. And that will also kind of help. Troubled waters, yeah. Thank you, Carolyn and Carrie. Troubled waters. So I talked to a couple of the people involved in that production. It sounds amazing, and hopefully there will be some information coming up on it soon. And made by a great filmmaker, and also made by made by the strongest activists in that area. So I know that I just want to give everybody a shout out that made that documentary, because thank you for getting that information out to us. You guys are doing the job that the news stations are supposed to do, and they don't. And that is just, it's so important. Yeah, so it means a lot to a lot of people, me included. So, Kat Chase and Casey Schulberg created Troubled Water. Oh, great, yes. Yeah, Kat Chase and Casey Schulberg, thank you guys. And I look forward to seeing the documentary. And we will put a link down there as well, so that everybody will have access to be able to go over. I know Cat Chase Media does a lot of work and is a very strong activist, production activist down in Florida. And she really devotes a lot of her time to trying to get to the truth and passion to try to keep everybody safe and keep the environment safe as well. So, oh my gosh, Gavin Von Carls. What's up, Gavin? Hey, man. That's old friend. Good to see him on there. And yeah, look at that. Everybody likes Kat. I know. That's good. So yeah, I'm glad to see Kat doing this. And again, making that documentary puts the story out that's missing. So, and Michelle, I see you're on there. I'm not quite sure why we had Carl. Let's see. 1 second. Carl. Okay. Debbie. All right. See, this is good. I like this. It actually, I can see the conversations are going on without me in some of this part, which is fantastic. That's the whole purpose of this, is to get to that. To get to that point where people are talking. The one big thing is. The one big thing is politics. I mean, like I said, Florida's very divided politically. So one thing I did find is that a lot of the people that have a lot in common don't share it because it gets too intense on one side or the other. When I started checking out what was happening in Florida, everybody had a motto that said "Vote Blue," and and the idea was that water and environment is the number one starting point for all politics and votes. And I really like that. I don't know if it's still going on down there. I don't see it so much anymore. I think things have become a little divisive. And one thing that I know a lot of activists I've talked to have all said that they hope that in the upcoming elections, people will keep the environment out of the political realm and think about, in the political realm, you have to think that policies will affect everything. And in that sense, politicians are the only friends that the environment have. So, but if everybody outside of politics can vote blue, think ocean, think future, think about your kids, think about your grandkids, and think about what's good for the environment, and then force whatever politicians are there to do the will that's best for the environment and the people. That is what a lot of activists have said to me. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think that would be an important approach coming up with we're going to have a very heated election coming up. But anyway, I really like this. It is nice to see so many different people coming together and sharing information and these links. And you're right, Michelle. Dirt is definitely behind both parties. That's the thing, is national policies way outlast a presidency and a party. Everything changes. So, what's important is the will of the people. Here's the thing. I don't want to get into politics, but whether you're on the right or you're on the left, although you call it different things, both of you want the same thing, I think, which is to be happy, to be healthy, and to create a better world for your kids and your grandkids, and to be free and happy. And that's it. And now you guys may have different ways that you want to go about it. And out of those two ways and those conversations will eventually erupt a third concept that's a mix of the two. And that will be where the answer is. But, you guys already know all this stuff, but you know what I'm saying. I just think that it's important for everybody to remember that as we enter a heated political arena, leave the theatrics to those guys and remember that the water's ours. It's not theirs. And don't let them treat it as theirs. For whatever reason, we were not able to catch up with Carl today. But I know Michelle's going to call in any second. And Carl, if you're able to reach us, please call in. And if not, for any reason, hit me up on Facebook message, or maybe we can bring you back on another one. I'd like to hear more about the rights of movement, the rights of nature movement, because it's a fascinating movement that's creating a big difference here. Carl tagged you in a post. Carl tagged me. Okay. Here's Michelle. Okay. So everybody, hold on one quick second. We are going to just get Michelle set up here. Hey there. Hey, Michelle. Hey. All right. Give me one quick second, because as you've seen, I'm a little messy in getting my tech stuff together. How's the weather in Florida today? Looks nice. I dig it. That's it. I heard earlier for Stel there was a little bit of rain. Maybe let's see. Okay, let me just do this real fast, and then we're gonna bring you on. So were you out on the water today? Oh, nice, nice. Perfect. Okay, I guess you got to do that sometimes, huh? Okay, well, here we are. There's Michelle. Hi, hey, Michelle. There you go. Now you're on screen with us, and
Hey
we
guys.
have everybody also doing messages there, so they can talk to you. A little water interest. There you go. Right on topic. So, okay, so we've been hearing a lot in the news, and we've been hearing a lot about what's happening in the water. Now, you're on the water every day. Could you tell me a little bit, or tell everybody a little bit about what you do for a living, why you're on the water every day, and what are you seeing out there right now?
Well, I'm an eco tour guide, so I take out these little personal like catamarans, little like a go-kart for water, kind of like fits two people. And I take people out on an eco tour. We go kind of slow, kind of fast in some areas, and take them out, teach them about the ecology of the area and the wildlife. And so that's why I'm out there every day. I was out in the height of the cyanobacteria bloom that we had this year, which was horrible. It smelled horrible, and that was disgusting. Most of that has now sank to the bottom, to the floor, so
Oh,
I'm not seeing it, which is good.
that's good.
And the water is very tannic; it's very brown, but there's still some wildlife. And you don't have red tide right now, so we're actually at the moment. We don't have open sores. We're doing okay.
So, if somebody said, "Hey, I want to go kayaking and check it out," it's okay for everybody to get into the water as long as no open sores and.
No open sores, no immune systems. I wouldn't, or no, like if you have immune deficiencies, cancer, autoimmune issues, kidney disease, liver disease, I wouldn't recommend it. Not for young children, especially not in the estuaries. That's where the cyanobacteria bloom is at, and that's where all of this runoff is really hitting first. Um, so yeah, I mean, always be mindful of that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And then even if you are healthy, get out and take a shower right away. But really what we're seeing here in Florida is like what we're seeing much all over the country and all over the globe. It's long-term effects. So you're going to go in today and you're probably going to be okay. But if you're exposed every single day, this is when we're going to get autoimmune issues and chronic disease. So that's what we're looking at.
Now, how how have you seen it change over the last couple months? Did it get really bad and it was very visual and you could sort of tell where all the danger was, or is it a slightly more invisible danger that you have to face?
It was visible to me because I knew what I was looking for. Unfortunately, the issue is with that is most people, because it's always there. So like the Lambinga bloom, there's every single year there's going to be a little bit of it, so people are used to it. And so to them, it was normal, and they don't have the understanding that there's way more than what there should be, or even the normal amount, because nobody's ever really addressed a problem. They don't think anything of it. So I did kind of watch the waters from winter time to early spring just be crystal clear, beautiful. I was starting to see wildlife come back. I was seeing bait fish. I was seeing birds, and life finally come back after a long 15 months of death. And then the Lambinga bloom hit a couple months ago, and definitely a change in the water. You can even, I don't know, kind of who I am. I even kind of see a change in the behavior of the animals a little bit. And then this bloom just started ticking over, and you could kind of see it on the floor in the shallow areas where our seagrass is at. And you can just see this filmy green stuff beginning to attach itself to the seagrass and grow up. And then within a week, it was breaking off and creating these, 500,000 foot mats. And then also little tiny ones all over the place. So they'd start off tiny, but then because of currents and wind and tide, they would all collect. And they would be huge areas. Just, I could drive my boat for several minutes and it would just be a bloom. Yeah. So now that's all dropped.
What when you go out, or what sort of, how can you tell, do you learn you should be cautious from website and then you go out, or is it something you can see or sense when you're actually out there, or what are sort of the, I guess, the warning signs maybe?
Well, the summertime is always going to be a warning sign. Warmer weather. That's when, the flesh-eating disease is going to be there. Cyanobacteria. They tend to collect more. They do better in warmer weather. So warmer weather, definitely want to be careful. More so than in the wintertime. Again, anybody with open wounds, cuts, immune deficiencies, you have to be careful all the time. And a lot of the time you can't see it. So there could be a high concentration of a cyanobacteria. We can't see it. But generally, definitely, if you see something that is not a normal seaweed, if you see an algae, I would not recommend swimming in it at all. Being out in the boat is one thing. You can still even breathe it in. So I wear a mask. If I know that if I'm seeing the algae, I'm going to wear a barrier. I'm going to wear a buff, just so I'm not breathing it in. And I always shower afterwards, just because, like you said, you never know.
Better be safe then, yeah.
Yes.
So let's see. All right, so what I wanted to also ask you about then, because again, you're in the field, when it comes to hysteria, right? So I believe that there's been sort of maybe some misunderstanding on a lot of people's parts. So what I'm curious is to mention a few different things and see how your real life experience has been with it, or to see, if you can shed any light on it for us. Okay, so the first hysteria question is, okay, I'm going to get near the water and I'm going to have a flesh-eating disease.
Okay, well, that is possible in pools, hot tubs, any body of water, especially when it's warm. You can get it from a hospital. It can come from cellulitis, as well as it can come from vibrio, in the ocean and some other areas. Vibrio does exist naturally around our oyster beds and whatnot. So always there is that chance, but the chance is very slim. We have millions of people in the water every day, all day long. I personally am in with fire ant bites because I'm always outside gardening, so I'm always getting torn up. And I'm in the estuary with open wounds, and I'm okay. But I know that my immune system is good. So, it's maybe 49 cases out of millions of people every single year. Yes, it is rising, and the more sewage dump that we have into our waters, the more problem it's going to be, the more nitrogen, all of it. So you do have to be mindful. That's why I always take a shower. But I don't think it's cause for hysteria whatsoever. If you have millions of people getting in, thousands every day, and you only have 40 cases a year, and only maybe 11 out of those 40 cases may die. So it's not, you have a better chance of winning the lottery than you do getting a flesh-eating bacteria disease at the moment.
Interesting. Okay, so that's good to know. So your odds are a lot better than, See, there you go. Okay. So that's definitely good to know. Oh no, wait 1 second. Something happened there with our image. There you go. Okay. So now the next question that I have for you is, as far as, basic precautions, do you just, your basic precautions you do, or just to make sure you don't have any open cuts, or do you wear anything? I know you had said, you'll wear like a buff or something, just for, for your mouth, but is there anything else or is it pretty much, that you're going to be okay out there?
Yeah, like I said, my concern really isn't flesh-eating disease. It's more of long-term effects. The likelihood of me getting that are pretty slim. But I do know that I'm basically playing Russian roulette by being around this water all the time as far as long-term effects are concerned. Especially with our drinking water, but that's unfortunately what we have going on with our rain. Our rain is toxic, our food is toxic. So it's just adding another aspect to our life that's likely going to cause cancer or autoimmune diseases later on in life. So,
yeah. Do you have, I just wanted to know, I mean, now that you've been studying it, and I know you have, um, science background, I know that you also have an in the field experience. As a mom, what are your thoughts on this? Like, what do you think the future holds, and what would you like to see happen?
Ah, yes. I fight so hard really because of the kids. Um, at this point, a lot of us adults have already been exposed to it, and we're really the only ones that can begin to clean our waters. And if we don't, our kids are going to have a rough time. I fear the level of chronic disease, cancer rates, and whatnot if we continue on the path that we're down. We need to get our water clean, and that does scare me. My son does not drink any water out of the tap here, no well water, and I don't like showering him in it. And he's not in the ocean anywhere near as much as I am. And that's just me trying to protect his immune system and the buildup of what's going on and being exposed to toxins. So that really is the sad part, is the kids. And I am very concerned about the well-being of our children. Absolutely.
Wow, yeah, I mean, I imagine that's got to be, kind of frightening to know, there's so many different aspects. And, from what we've heard today, there's so many different elements of danger as well. I mean, I know that there's supposedly the Vibrio. I know there's been a lot of sewage spills in all of the waterways.
Yes. Yes.
I know there's been tons
Yes.
of pollution and nutrient issues, fertilizer as well, sort of feeding it. Can you help explain to people that are at home also how that fertilizer feeds these issues?
I can. So basically, I mean, you guys know that you are putting fertilizer on your plants to help them grow, nitrogen and phosphorus. Usually, a lot of our fertilizers are mostly nitrogen based. So you're applying that to your lawn, and to help your grass grow or your plants grow, whatever. Unfortunately, that runs directly into our Gulf, into our fresh waters. So even if it's in your lawn for a minute, it's going to run off into your the drainage ditch, and it's going to run off into our canals. And if it's not causing a cyanobacteria bloom in those canals, it's still feeding them, and that's going to be food to feed other harmful algae blooms in the Gulf or in our canals. So just think about this way: whatever you're using it to feed your plants with, it's also going to feed the harmful algae blooms. It doesn't just go away. It is water soluble, but not at the extent that we're using it. And we're applying it so much, and then it rains, and it just goes right in there. Like, we might as well be dumping fertilizer directly into our canals and our Gulf, because that's basically what we are doing. And then as things begin to die, which people don't really think about that. So as this cyanobacteria bloom dies, or as your grass clippings die that are in the water, or as these FWC and HOAs go by and they spray your ponds and they spray your canals, trying to spray these invasive plants or these plants that people don't like, as you spray them, not only is glyphosate adding nutrients, because it's a phosphorus-based herbicide, but also as the plants die, they create nitrogen. Nitrogen is food. So not only are you adding fertilizer, but as you kill the plants, you're adding more fertilizer as in the form of nitrogen. So as they die. So it's this crazy cycle. We're just continuing to feed it. And then on a larger scale, what I like to tell people is it's not just Florida. So as we burn coal and we burn fossil fuels, that also releases nitrogen to the air. Plus our atmosphere is also nitrogen. And then lightning and nitrogen together make nitrous oxide, and it's in the rain. And so we're just have really disrupted this cycle. And so not only is it because of our lawns and our golf courses and loss of biodiversity, it's a giant picture, and it's huge. And I don't see an end to it unless we really deal with the root of the problem. That means people are changing their diets, people are changing the way that they grow their lawns, and stopping fossil fuels.
That's that's interesting, because that is what Stel was talking about, is that we have to be together to do that. And I think it's bigger than even just all talking. We have to make a lot of big changes, to try to push it forward. What is one change that you and your family implement to help the environment, or to try to help with
Well, plastic. We've cut down on a lot of plastic, and I try to buy organic as much as possible. And I'm really trying to teach myself and my kids how to wildcraft, so how to eat native indigenous plants that are here, our wild grapes, beauty berries, purslane, pennyworts. So anything like eat the weeds. That's my biggest thing is learn to eat the weeds. And that will actually make a huge difference.
That's great. That's great. You know that, and that is you know that's something very interesting. Is we need to get you know knowledge back again about nature. You know, we've sort of removed ourselves so far that we've ended up trusting journalists and bureaucrats about what nature is, and now here we are, and they've been in charge of it, and now we're all in issues with it. So we need to take that information back, and I like that because I think that that seems to be what you're doing out there with the tours is bringing people and reigniting that passion they have for being in nature.
Yes, absolutely. Like I'm a child when I'm out there. I get just excited to see dolphins and birds and ospreys and fish as a child does, and I try to instill that into our people. And I think that when I get excited to see that life, they do as well. And that's how we're going to fall back in love with nature, is getting excited again to see the simplicity and yet the complexity of nature. And we have to remember that we're connected to it, and that's the real solution, is reconnecting.
Well said. Well said. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining today and being on the podcast. It's really important and nice to hear your perspective, because you're always on the water. You see what's happening. You've got the day-to-day. And I know you're very much an activist, and you're always putting out posts and trying to show people what's happening out there. And I really appreciate you being here and helping us understand a little bit more of what's going on.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for doing this, Eric. You're awesome.
Nice, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Hope to have you back on another show.
Absolutely, bye.
Hey, guys.
All right, baby.
All right, nice. Bye-bye. Hey, guys. So, good news. Karl called in. Karl, are you there? Hey, Karl. Yes. For some reason, I'm not getting a visual. Okay. Hey, there he is. Oh, man, you actually look really good on Skype. Okay, guys, hold on one second. We've got Karl is here. We're going to bring him on in one quick second. So, yeah, that was amazing to get to talk to, to be able to talk to Michelle and to see what's going on out there. Now, what is it? I like that. Hyper activist. That's good. Well, that's definitely what the waters needs. So let's see. Let me switch you on here, and then we're going to bring you. There you are, Karl. And let me just bring you. All right. And now, Karl, you also spend a lot of time on the water, too. Here we go. Okay. Sorry. One sec, Karl. Okay. Here we go. All right, guys, we are going to switch over now, and we're going to bring in Karl, who is somebody that I've known for a while. That's a very, very strong clean water activist, and has been involved in a couple different issues. And but I'm better for him to describe it than myself. So let's bring him on. And also, guys, remember, if you have questions for Karl, please feel free to ask. So here we are. Hey, Karl, thanks for joining us.
Good to see you again, sir.
Hey, man, good to see you. So, Karl, we've been talking about all these issues going on. If you could just first, even before we begin to talk about the movement that you're part of, could you just give us a background, who you are and what you're doing down there in Florida?
Sure. So I've been in Florida for since 1986. And I've watched it die slowly. I've been coming to Florida since I was in diapers. I saw Florida when it's probably was at its best. I'm sure Jacques Cousteau saw it in a little bit better condition than I did. But in the 1970s, our springs were crystal clear all the way into the canals. Today they're algae filled, green. Our springs are dying, algae laden. I've watched our Florida Keys coral reefs go from pristine gardens to less than 5% hard coral coverage. And our explosive population growth over the last 40 years here in Florida has just overloaded our infrastructure. Just in the last 48 hours, we've had over 50 reported spills to the DEP. And I wonder how many aren't reported. Just in Miami, they just stopped the spill, but 1.7 million gallons of raw sewage was discharged into the Oleta River, which is kind of like the Broward-Dade boundary there. And our infrastructure is not able to keep up with let's say we're overpopulated, add an extra O in there.
Overpopulated.
And it just can't handle it. And it's being ignored by the politicians. They just gave $400 million to corporations. They've dedicated millions of dollars to building toll roads to nowhere, essentially. And there's money that could be better spent to upgrade our infrastructure and improve our state quality of waters, for sure. So that said, I've been on the water since I was a kid. Looking at retirement, we moved to Matlacha, Florida, where we purchased a waterfront motel. I've had my captain's license for about 15 years now. I do water tours out to the barrier islands. And my sustainability depends on good water. And, we arrived here in 2014. Things looked good. My first time to visit to Matlacha was in 2007. That was a year before Cape Coral removed a retention barrier in their canal system in 2008, and the water was great. When we returned in 2014, that barrier was removed in 2008, flushing 400 linear miles of canal water into the Matlacha Pass, devastating the grass beds and the fishery. Then the cyanobacteria blooms came. My first experience with that was 2016. It fortunately didn't arrive to Matlacha. It stayed down to the south and out into San Carlos Bay and up the Caloosahatchee River. We were very fortunate here in Matlacha. It didn't come to my backyard. And then 2018, of course, was just devastating for the entire state. Yes. So I came to the clean water thing in about 2016 with that first cyanobacteria bloom. Living in the Florida Keys, you're kind of isolated from what's going on up here on the mainland. And but moving up here, when you live down there, the water's nice. I've seen it degrade there as well, but it's still nice compared to every place else. I became active around 2016, I guess, with this stuff. And it's frustrating. So we write the letters, we go to the board meetings, we go to the commission meetings, we email, we have one-on-ones with legislators. People travel to Tallahassee, to Washington, D.C., and nothing ever seems to get accomplished. We have a regulatory system that is built really to defeat us. When the EPA or the DEP, Florida DEP, issues a permit, that's exactly what they're doing. They're permitting the exploitation or devastation of the ecosystem. It's not to protect us. The EPA and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection do not protect us. They were designed and put in place to regulate acceptable amounts of devastation is what they do. They don't protect us. They issue these permits for water consumption by mosaic, trillions of gallons a year, of biosolids, use of biosolids, with the total accumulation being regulated by the build-up of heavy metals per acre and poundage. So many pounds of arsenic, so many pounds of lead from those biosolids. That's how they regulate the total accumulation. Once it gets to a level, they're supposed to stop using it. But of course, like your turf growers, they spread it, and then they harvest it. They get a credit for the amount that they remove, So their total accumulation, they can put more back on, moved supposedly some amount.
No.
So anyway, being basically defeated, feeling defeated, and as I'm sure most activists in Florida feel, all our work, all our, banging on doors, standing on bridges, hanging signs, is fruitless. It's essentially fruitless. When you oppose these DEP permits or an EPA ruling, you're fighting a regulatory system that will just become stronger with each win that you make. So, for example, I'm president of the Matlacha Civic Association, and the Civic Association with about 6 or 7 other petitioners, several of these people live in Cape Coral, within Cape Coral boundaries. Cape Coral decided they wanted to remove a second barrier to the south, similar to that 2008 barrier removal, the CETUS barrier. They now want to remove the Chiquita Lock barrier. We've already got a historical record of what's going to happen when you take this barrier out of similar canal system. So when I heard about this, I rallied as many people in the area that I could, people that would have standing. I reached out to all the major players in the area. Nobody decided to become a petitioner. Nobody even made a public statement to defend keeping the barrier in place. And I'm talking about some of the biggest groups in Southwest Florida remains completely silent because they all have their own alliances and they don't want to upset anybody. But Matlacha Civic Association with individuals took on the DEP and the city of Cape Coral. The ruling's still in play. We're waiting for a ruling from the administrative law judge on that. So we may win, and there's a good chance we win. We put on a really good case. Our attorney, a fellow in town here by the name of Mike Hannon, he is not a Florida attorney, but he is an attorney from Washington, D.C., and was able to act as our qualified representative. He probably put up $50,000 of his own time into this case. And then we had expert witnesses. We had John Cassani from Calusa Waterkeepers stepped up on his own to act as an expert witness. And we had a fellow by the name of Kevin Irwin, lives here on Pine Island. He's a world-renowned expert on mangroves, and he participated. So we may defeat this application called a ERP, an environmental regulatory permit. I think that's what it's called. We may defeat this on technicalities. Cape Coral didn't jump through all the hoops that they were supposed to jump through. So what's going to happen? So they may determine that yes, we prevail, and we stop the removal of that lock. So because they didn't cross a T or dot an I or didn't file a particular paper when it was supposed to be filed. So what happens? We win, but only for a moment, because we've taught them what they've done wrong. They now know what to correct, so they'll come again. They'll fix those deficiencies, and they'll come again. And we'll have to go through the same entire process, in upwards of $100,000 to fight them. And we may win again. But every time we win, they become stronger because now they know how to correct their deficiencies. And every other applicant to the DEP becomes stronger because they now know what to look for that the adversarial activists may be looking for, right? So it's the same way when you challenge any corporate permit or action. Every time you defeat them, they become stronger, and all the other corporations, the permit seekers, become stronger. So eventually, you may delay the project for some number of years, but eventually you will exhaust all your challenges because they've corrected them all. There's nothing to fall back on. You will be defeated. And this is a hamster wheel that just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
The corporation, the city, they will eventually prevail. And the lock will come out at some point. I'm assured of it. So, and it's the same way with any other permit seeking, whether it's, mining the lands of Lee County here in Florida, which is a big issue right now, or any place else. You're fighting a regulatory system that's essentially fixed by the corporations. The corporations write the regulatory language, which then they pass to lobbyists, which then they pass to politicians, which enact that regulatory language, so abide by. So, and that's the way our system works. It's a corporate oligarchy that is built to defeat us and to keep us in place. The first regulatory agency ever invented or put in place was the ICC, the Interstate Commerce Commission, in 1864. And that was put in place by the railroad barons because the railroad barons were getting so much pushback about their devastation of their expansion of the railroads across private lands and ecosystems that they said, they went to the government and said, hey, look, we need freedom to exercise our rights across these lands to build these railroads. And so the ICC was created not to control or protect the environment or the lands that were being devastated, but to control the people who were opposing it. And every regulatory system we have in place today does exactly that. It doesn't regulate anything but activist environmentalists. That's what they regulate. They're not designed to protect your environment. They are not. They tell you that you're supposed to accept certain levels of devastation is what they do. So, fed up. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
The hamster wheel. So what do you do? So Sherry Straub of Ohio, now of Fort Myers, introduced me to this concept called the rights of nature. So the rights of nature, the ultimate goal of the rights of nature is to restore your constitutional community rights. And in doing so, provide the highest level of protection allowed by law, which is the assignment of inalienable constitutional rights or personhood to ecosystems. So what does that exactly mean? How does a non-human entity have constitutional rights? Well, let's go back to the corporation. The corporation, you and I can form a corporation tomorrow. We can form the Eric and Coral Corporation of ABC tomorrow.
Eric Carl.
And
that'll be us.
And it never dies. Yeah. So it's obviously not human. It never dies. It can last for perpetuity, as long as somebody's at the helm to run it. So corporations are not people, but over the last 140 years or so, the corporate oligarchy that's now in place of our democracy has, through the court system, created a system where corporations have constitutional rights. Their argument was that corporations are a group of people. Each individual person within that corporation has constitutional rights. Therefore, the corporation must have constitutional rights. The corporation is nothing but a slip of paper. It's a non-human entity given constitutional rights. So this is where the rights of nature movement is giving ecosystems these constitutional rights. If a corporation, a non-human entity that's just a slip of paper, can have these rights, certainly an ecosystem can have the same rights. So historically, our ecosystems have been held out as property. And the rights of nature movement is a movement in the true sense of the word. If we look back historically, we had the abolitionists that freed the slaves. We had the suffragettes that freed women's rights. We had the civil rights movement with MLK. And most recently, we've had the LGBT community that have had movements to create laws where laws did not exist. Back in the day, that slave did not have a right. They were considered property and chattel. If you damaged an owner's slave, you murdered it, or that person, that slave, you paid the owner restitution for damage of his property. Women had no protections. They had no right to vote. But through the suffragette movement, they achieved protective rights, the right to vote. Same way with the blacks, civil rights movement, all the way up to, being able to use a restroom, a water fountain, sitting on the bus. So these entities that never had rights in that process, our ecosystems, nature, have never had those protective rights. And this is what the Rights of Nature movement intends to do. We intend to give nature these constitutional rights. Now, it's not a quick fix by any means. It's a long road. It's going to be civil rights movement. How long has that been going on? 60 years, 70 years? And is it even finished today? I don't think so. Those people of color are still fighting issues. So this is a long road. I'm in it for the long haul. Right. So having gone down the rabbit hole on this, it was like an epiphany. We can make change. So how is that change created? So there's three ways to bring the change. Your county so first of all, it can only be done in municipalities or counties that are established by charter. Charter organized municipalities and counties have a higher level of home rule than a statutory formed county or municipality, which has to follow the rules of the state. So counties or charter organized municipalities can make rules to govern themselves. You have a right as a citizen within the United States and within these charter communities to self-govern. And you can pass any law that you want. So long as it doesn't interfere or contradict an existing state law or federal law. So this is where it becomes complex. So we intend to amend our county charter here in Lee County. There's currently 5 counties in the state of Florida under this same guidance from the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund. The acronym is CELDF.org. CELDIF, we refer to as. So the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund is providing the guidance worldwide. They've worked with the countries of Ecuador, Mexico, Tibet, India, to get these rights of nature language into the constitutions. They work with the indigenous tribes to modify their constitutions to put the rights of nature language into their place. So how's it going to work here in Lee County? So there's 3 ways to do this. One, you go to your county commissioners. We have 5, and we introduce the concept. And they say, damn, Karl, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it, right? And they just adopt it. We don't expect that to happen here in Lee County. All but one of our county commissioners are pro-development. The other way is by law, these charters have to undergo a charter review every several years. And at that time, you can submit your proposed amendments, and there's a back and forth refinement, and it's sent up for adoption by the commissioners. We don't think that's going to happen. The third and final way, and it's bulletproof, essentially, it's a lot of work, but you create a political action committee or a nonprofit 501c4. We're going down the political action committee road to raise money for a petitioning campaign. And it's a campaign in the true sense of the word, just like if we were trying to get myself elected to county commission, trying to get these amendments to the commission or to the charter amended and put in place. So we had to collect here in Lee County. We collect 44,000 signatures. It's a challenge. We had to get the petition approved by the supervisor of elections on day one when he puts his final stamp on it. There'll be some back and forth refinement, blah blah blah, meeting the laws of the state. When he puts his stamp on it, the clock starts ticking. We have 6 months to collect the required percentage of signatures. We need about 44,000. Put that in perspective, it's 250 signatures a day for 6 months. So we need people. We need community groups because we need to take that 250 signatures a day and we need to divide it among as many people as we can so that each person, each group can go out and collect those 10 or 20 signatures a day, every day, so that they can bring them back and we can get the required number of signatures within the required amount of time. We're shooting for the 2020 general election to have our referendum on the ballot for vote. Yeah. So that was quite lengthy. Got some questions?
Man, I don't know. Actually, that's a very, that was great. I mean, I'd never heard of the movement before, so you've actually filled in a lot of the missing holes, including the evolution of how we get there now. Because I used to always amaze me the whole, what is it, Citizens United or whatever that gives the corporations the powers of people. So it's very exciting, the idea that nature can have that same sort of representation within the legal system, because it's a problem that has brought us to where we are, is that we only think in resource. Oh, well, this is ours to exploit. But, a lot of things stayed because even if they were exploited, they were still preserved and conserved through the process. And right now it's kind of an unbridled sort of land grab, going on in a sense. So I think what you guys are doing is really amazing. So now I know you were saying you have to get all the signatures and to get everything ready. Are you working with other groups in the area? It sounds like a perfect umbrella for a lot of different groups and people to get together to try to move forward together.
Right. So we are reaching out. We're just a few weeks into this process. So we're getting a lot of support from the Pachamama group here in Southwest Florida. We're getting Citizens Climate Lobby folks are onboarding. We've developed a speaker group for community outreach. So anybody that's within earshot of my words today, I ask you to put your community groups, your homeowners associations, your church groups, your political alliance groups, your fraternal organizations. We need to talk to as many people as we can to bring this concept to the people so that they have a full understanding of the benefits. So we're getting, a lot of times they'll say, well, you're going to put the county on the hook for, being responsible. So I need to back up on that statement. I need to back up a little bit. How does the ecosystem, once you give the Caloosahatchee River a Bill of Rights, its rights, what does that mean? How is the river going to defend itself? Obviously, you can't, the river's not going to drive to court. So just like a child cannot represent itself in court, a minor, what the Bill of Rights does is it gives the river personhood. And through that personhood, it can be represented as a special party in interest. The legal term is special party in interest. So any resident of Lee County can step up and represent the river as a special party. And that's how it's done. So now this is a county ordinance, right? We've amended the county charter. So anybody that wants to sue on behalf of the river, it's the county that's going to be the defendant. So people will say that's going to be expensive for the county. Well, what's happened in Ohio and Toledo is that the city, so this rights of nature was established for Lake Erie and Toledo because of their toxic water situation. So initially, the city of Ohio, Toledo said, "Oh hell no, we're not doing this because, we can't have this." Well, last week they flipped. They have seen the light. They have now are moving to. They're being challenged by the Farming Bureau up there, and what the city commissioners of Toledo have realized is the rights of nature language gives them back their home rule. It reestablishes their home rule. It gives them an opportunity to say, hell no, we're not putting up with these preemptive laws that say we can't have straws, that we can't ban an herbicide, that we can't ban styrofoam. I mean, recently here in Florida, Coral Gables over in Dade County, they prohibited the sale of styrofoam, the use of styrofoam, but they were overruled by a lobbyist group, and the judge found in favor that they were in violation of Florida preemptive state laws. So we have a constitutional right, and this is where it becomes a little complex. We have a constitutional right to self-governance and not to be subjected to these preemptive laws. If we decide that we don't want styrofoam or we want our ecosystem to have these constitutional rights, as the people of Lee County, we have a constitutional right to do so. And as soon as the politicians realize that it increases their voice, and yes, they will have to step up and defend their voice, but it gives them a right to home rule that they need to realize it strengthens them, not weakens them. And as soon as we can get that communicated to these folks, I think we'll garner a lot more support.
Fantastic. This is a very exciting. It's a very exciting change because it's a very different approach than the traditional one. So I'm sure you've probably get a little pushback here and there from people, but I mean it sounds like a lot of people are coming together with it. And I think it's a very interesting, and it's what it needs, because in the end, regardless of our hearts and our view on things, businesses will do what they can get away with. And so for you guys to give a legal voice to nature, to me, it sounds like a huge, somebody wrote this earlier, it's a paradigm shift.
It is.
I think that's
exactly right.
It's nature's
We are
chance.
creating laws do not exist. And we are, and Mr. Lindsay, who's really, and Mari, what's Mari's last name? I apologize. Pardon me?
Mari?
From CELDIF, Mari, I forget her last name, I apologize. These folks have thought this out. They have thought through this paradigm and have come to the conclusion that through a fight in the court system that challenged, we will prevail, and that the judge, an ultimate judge, probably at the Supreme Court level at some point, will have to rule that we have the constitutional right to govern ourselves and to put these laws in place.
Mm-hmm. It's great. You got to force them to do it. Karl, this is it's an amazing effort. I know you guys have been working on this for a while. It's taken a bit of time to put it together, and I know you guys have really pushed hard to do it. So, I hope you're also enjoying that it's starting now. It's building. It's got its energy, and it's you guys have started something brand new in that area, and so.
Yeah, we are excited about it, and and we're trying to recruit. So, in the state of Florida, there's 67 counties. Only 20 of those counties are organized by charter. But the most interesting fact about that, you would say, oh, well, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell. Those 20 counties of 67 hold 74% of the population. So once we knock down those 20 counties, we now have the Wekiva effort in Orange County. We have the Santa Fe River initiative in Alachua. We have the Alafaya River initiative in Polk, and somebody's coming on board in Charlotte County for the Peace River. So we have these. We met with a group, 350 South Miami the other day, in Dade. So Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties are also charter counties. They probably hold almost 20% of the population in those three counties. So once we knock down county by county, there'll be a greater amount of awareness statewide, and then we'll move to amend the state constitution. And when is that going to happen? That's 10, 15 years down the road. We're not deluded that this is any quick fix.
So now, Karl, we're almost out of time here. Before we go, I wanted to give everybody a clear way to get to your website or to your information. What's the best way for them to reach you or to see it?
Right. So we've to bring educational awareness, and we've created a nonprofit. That nonprofit is called Clean Water Now Incorporated. Clean Water Now Incorporated is a registered nonprofit, not-for-profit corporation in the state of Florida. We have approval by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services to solicit funds. Today, I just finished the application for our tax-exempt status with the IRS. So we're jumping through the hoops, but the IRS allows you to begin collecting funds immediately to support your nonprofit. So anybody that would like to make a donation to Clean Water Now can do so. You can contact me through Facebook to find out where you can send your contribution. So we have Clean Water Now Inc. Facebook page, but that's basically a general page on water quality in South Florida and around the states. We keep it as much nonpartisan as possible. Sometimes one will sneak in, but this is a nonpartisan issue. It's not blue, red. It's without clean water, we have a right to clean water and air. It's not a political issue. Unfortunately, it's hard to talk about without getting political. So our other Facebook page, where we concentrate and we disseminate the information specifically on the rights of nature, is called Caloosahatchee Bill of Rights. So the Caloosahatchee Bill of Rights, we refer to that as CalBOR, C-A-L for Caloosahatchee, and B-O-R for Bill of Rights. The other entities around we have LEBOR, the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. We have WEBOR, the Wekiva Economic Lake River Initiative. SafeBOR, which is the Santa Fe River Bill of Rights. So we have Caloosahatchee Bill of Rights, we have the Florida Bill of Rights, and we have the SafeBOR, SAFEBOR Facebook pages for the different counties. Ours is Caloosahatchee Bill of Rights. You can reach me through there. You can reach me through Clean Water Now, or you can reach me through my personal Facebook page, Karl Deigert. And to learn more, we need your help. We need everybody in Southwest Florida and ultimately the state of Florida. We need your groups. We need your bodies. We need your funding to take this forward. Right now, I've been paying for this all out of pocket. I'm all on board. I don't care how much it costs. I'm taking it forward. I'm into my sense of dedication I'm into this for about $7,000 right now. And there's been no reimbursement at this point. So that's how this is being funded. That's how it's done. I'm doing it myself. Along with the help, we now have a board of directors for Clean Water Now of 5 people. Sherry Stroud, president. Dawn Piner, secretary. I'm the treasurer. Wanda Hayes is our vice president. Drusilla Neely is our director on the board. So we have to form a political action committee. We've come up with a name for the political action name. We're going to call it Florida RON, Rights of Nature. Florida RON. Nice. This is a separate corporation that has to be formed. It's a 501c4, which allows you to advocate for specific issues and specific candidates. So through that political action committee, which will also require funding, Clean Water Now is a 501c3 nonprofit. We have to remain basically apolitical. You can contribute up to 40% of your funds to political action, but the majority of your money cannot go to political action. So the Political Action Committee we're looking for a board of directors. We have a few volunteers. We want a separate body of people to avoid any conflict in between the two. So the two separate entities. Clean Water Now is one entity for educational purposes. Florida Ron will be the Political Action Committee to drive the petitioning initiative, get all the paperwork. So just for example, we're going to need about $5,000 just to have the petition printed up. And then each petition that you submit is so many pennies per page for them to review it. And if they kick it back, in that regard, if you sign a petition, any petition, that petition goes to your supervisor of elections, where somebody is paid to compare your signature on that form to the signature on your voter registration card. So if they don't match, they kick it out. I don't even know if you turn it to the petitioning group. They just deny it. So it's real important that you update your signature on your voter's
Never would have even thought about that.
Right. Every once in a while, you need to go update your voter registration signature, because over time they change. Yeah. So every 2 or 3 years, you probably should go fill out a new form, submit your new signature. Also, in the state of Florida, you are dropped from the mailing ballot roll every 2 years. Whether you vote or not, every 2 years they drop you off the mail-in ballot list. So you have to re-up every 2 years. If you haven't done that, I would suggest you're looking to see if you're still active. You can go online and redo it and do it. But yeah, so all this is expensive. It's cost a lot of effort, but we need a lot of people that are willing to dedicate themselves to the petitioning effort, because we need to collect those 44,000 signatures in 6 months. So I'm asking you all to get us out there. We have speakers that will come and speak to your groups, and we need your help. And when we finally get, so we need to start petitioning in January to get things in place and finished by November of 2020. So that's where we're at. Everything is being pushed forward as quickly as it can.
Sounds good. Well, we'll keep checking in with you, Karl. Keep progress on this. I'm really excited to see how this develops. And again, thanks for joining us today. We've run out of time, but I really appreciate you letting us know about all this, and you've given us good things. I'm going to add some links in as soon as we're done with the podcast, so that people can just click right on and get over there and help. And then we'll be in touch as it continues. Thanks for stopping by, Karl.
All right. Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Take care.
See you, Bubba.
Bye. All right. Well, that was Karl talking to us about the rights of nature, and absolutely amazing topic. Today has been incredible. You know, we had Stel Bailey on earlier, who is somebody else that has been battling cancer and whose family has been in battle with cancer and has taken that experience and turned it into a way to help everybody, which I find very inspirational. We have Colleen Marie, who was so moved by what she was seeing around her that she just started going out and walking the beaches and showing people exactly what was what, which included with very famous images of some dead dolphins, and the writing, "This is not normal," underneath, which are images that still stay with me to this day. We have Michelle Bisson, who was incredible. She's an eco tour guide and told us exactly what's happening. She's in the water every day. So, whether you live in Florida or you're thinking about traveling to Florida or you just moved to Florida, there are varying levels of water that you have to be careful of. And Michelle pointed out a couple good ways to be able to determine when it's safe and when it's not. And again, we'll leave some links down there as well. And of course, Karl Deigert talking to us about the rights of nature. So incredible show. I kind of feel like Florida has so much going on, and it's such an amazing example of activism, pollution, politics, cancer clusters, that maybe we start doing like a weekly Florida show, just devoted to having one person on every week from Florida to talk about what's happening. Tell me what you guys think about that as well. Maybe we could add a second show and just do Florida. So please let me know in your comments. Let me know about any other shows you'd like to see coming up. And I really appreciate everybody for being here today, joining us, being part of the conversation, for everybody that Skyped in, everybody that wrote and gave us amazing information. You guys are incredible, and I feel very lucky to be here, being able to talk to everybody. And thank you, everybody. We will see you next week on Conservation Conversation.